Hey everybody, today is the 1st of November. It's the Solemnity of All the Saints, and I'm recording outdoors because Goa was hit, along with the western coast of India, was affected by the cyclone, and we had rains for about almost 2 weeks. We are now back to the sunshine. I thought I'd sit outdoors and teach you. Today is the Solemnity of All the Saints. The text is taken from Matthew chapter 5, verse 1 to 12a. If you want a teaching only on Matthew chapter 5, verse 1 to 12a, just go to YouTube, type Warner D'Souza, Matthew 5, 1 to 12, and you'll get a teaching only on the Beatitudes. Now, I also yesterday told you that in yesterday's description box, in the teaching of yesterday, I gave you the links to the All Souls Day, or the commemoration of the faithful departed, as it is officially called. So I'll put those links out again in the description box, because remember, tomorrow's Sunday and I won't be doing a teaching. But if you want to learn a little bit more about this celebration that we have in the church, where we remember the departed, please look at the description box. Just below this video is a description box, and you can click the links. Now I want to give you a bit of first history, because it's interesting to know how these celebrations came to be. And the celebration of, I'm sorry, the wind is pretty gusty, so you're going to have the camera shake a bit. Uh, so how did these celebrations come about? It's interesting, as I said, to know how they came about, because that gives us a bit of an insight. And the solemnity of All Saints Day really began in the 7th century. It began with a pope called Boniface IV, and he was greatly concerned by invaders who kept coming. Remember that from the 3rd century onwards, Rome was abandoned by the emperors of the Holy Roman Empire. Constantine, the first Roman emperor, moved his capital from Rome to Constantinople, which is in modern day Istanbul. Uh, and as a consequence, Rome was left to the popes, and they had to become its defenders, both of the faith as well physically of the city. Now, during the reign of Boniface the Fourth, there were several invaders who came, and they raided the catacombs in Rome. A great catacomb to go to is San Callisto. If you ever go to Rome, I'd love to take some of you only on a trip to Rome. Unfortunately, most people want to see everything, and in the bargain, they end up seeing and experiencing nothing. But the catacombs were being raided, and they were being raided because very often there was a view that besides the relics of the saints, which were priceless, there were also artifacts that were kept there, sometimes even jewelry. Now, Pope Boniface IV, in order to stop this desecration, had about 28 wagons of the relics or the bones of the early Christians, martyrs, and saints. He had them removed, and he had them reinterred under the Pantheon. If you go to Rome today, one of the great spectacles to see great architectural marvels is the Pantheon, with its oculus in the center. Pan or Pan meaning many, and Theos meaning gods, the temple to many gods. Now, it was built as a shrine to Jupiter and all the other gods. And then when Rome became Christian, when the empire became Christian, the emperor Phocas gave to the church, gave to the popes, the Pantheon. Now, what did Pope Boniface IV do? He, of course, had it consecrated. Some texts have it consecrated, not really reconsecrated, but he consecrated the church, which was once a pagan shrine, once to Jupiter, and now he consecrated to the Blessed Virgin Mary and to the martyrs. And he did this on the 13th of May, 609. It's very important. You'd say, why 13th of May, and what has that got to do with All Souls Day, All Saints Day, which merge into each other? So why this date? Because the 13th of May was already a pagan holiday. It was a day, it was the feast of the Lamures. Now, what is this? The pagans placated the spirits of the dead on this particular day, and that's why you can see how these two celebrations have got fused: All Saints Day and All Souls Day. Now, the current date that we have of the 1st of November was instituted by Pope Gregory III. He reigned between 731 and 741 for 10 years. And he consecrated a chapel within the Vatican, some say within St. Peter's Basilica. And this would be the old St. Peter's Basilica, not the new one. Remember, it was Pope Julius II, a Renaissance Pope, that had the new St. Peter's Basilica built. He, among many other popes. So the Pope Gregory first ordered this celebration on the 1st of November for Rome, and then subsequently for the whole Roman, for the universal church, that is for all of us. And from that time till now, it has continued to be celebrated as a solemnity on the 1st of November. Now, this day was formally, the All Saints Day was formally known as this, and this is very important. It was known as Hallows Day. The word hallow means simply holy. So all those who are holy, all who are saintly, we celebrated the Hallows Day. And it was also known by another name, Hallows Mass, like Christmas. Okay, Christmas is nothing but the Christ Mass. That's where it gets its name. Without the Mass and without Christ, Christmas is nothing. So they had the Hallows Mass. Now, in the tradition of the church, we always have the celebrations of solemnities that begin in the evening before. It's called the vigil. And what do we call it? The eve of the feast day. So the eve of Hallows Mass is All Hallows Eve, from where you get the word Halloween. Hallows Eve was a Christian celebration. We have made it once again into a pagan celebration. You know, quite recently, I saw a letter, a pastoral letter, and I'm very glad I want to speak about this, written by Father Daniel Fernandez from Mumbai. Father Daniel is always a very bold priest. He speaks his mind and he speaks it very clearly. And he's appealed to Christians to stop this practice of Halloween, this secular practice. You want Hallows Eve as a liturgical celebration? Why not? I like the fact that he issued, as it were, I was chuckling to myself. I said, bishops don't issue, a pastoral letter like this. And bishops ought to. They ought to, in the face of confusion at the time of Dasera and Ganesh Chaturthi, where Christians are confused with, should I displease my neighbor who is of another faith, who's celebrating this festival? How should I attend? What should I do? What should I say? And our bishops do not issue pastoral letters because they are afraid of controversy. They are afraid, and I'm saying this very clearly, they're afraid of, they are afraid of criticism. They are afraid of the blowback. They are afraid of how it will be received. I mean, the only ones that we should really be bothered about is Christ, but we don't. So I want to congratulate Father Daniel, who has written this pastoral letter. Almost I felt he's written it like a bishop, but All Hallows Eve is a Christian celebration turned into pagan nonsense. The celebration of the occult, the celebration of devilish ideas, and the participation of Christians in all of this makes it a mockery of the faith. I'm being very, very forceful about it. It's a mockery of the faith. And sometimes when parishes organize a Halloween party, and don't organize a vigil for All Hallows Eve, it makes it even worse. So there are other Christian denominations. What do our other Christian brothers and sisters do? They don't celebrate it on the 1st of November, but they celebrate it after Pentecost. That's just for your knowledge. So in the early church, how we are celebrating All Saints' Day? So how would saints really, how should I say, they were proclaimed. They were proclaimed by acclamation. People saw their good works. The criteria was, did they live for Christ? And then by acclamation, uh, saints were declared to be saints. I'm using the word declared because we don't make saints in the church. The Pope doesn't make saints. He only declares what is already in the heart of God. So the first canonization, just for a little bit of Christian trivia, took place in the year 933 AD. Now, I'm going to make several reflections. The first one is, as I said, saints, when you look at a saint, you look at them as holy people. And I've often explained this word holy, hagios, in Greek, hagios, really means different. Yeah, it's not uh, as we understand it as blessed or sacred, but different means it is set apart. um, I've often given this example. The altar in the church is different from other tables. Is it a table? Yes. Is it different from other tables? Yes. So it becomes hagios, it becomes different. And we, St. Paul calls us God's holy people. So we are called to live as God's holy people, God's different people. If we are going to start imitating the secular world, as we are doing so often, and living secular values, living secular lifestyles. In fact, I've always said this: the secular world does not shy away from attacking the church. The church shies away from even defending herself, and this is the mistake we're making. So we are called to be God's holy people. In that sense, the invitation, as I will explain a little later, the invitation to be a saint is universal. It's not for a few chosen. Now, what are we really celebrating today? We are celebrating all the saints, those whom the church has recognized as saints through a process of what we call canonization. Uh, and we are celebrating the saints whom the church has not called as saints, or not canonized them officially, but have lived saintly lives in the eyes of God and are saintly people. And some of them might, as we often say, are saints already here on earth. We see them. So, people, for example, who've raised us up, our grandparents. Somebody once said, why don't we have a synod on grandparents? Because they have been one of the largest contributors to the faith. And I'm talking about in the past. Today, grandparents, and I'm very sorry to say this, do not transmit the faith. Why? Because one of the reasons is also we are no longer living as joint families. We live as nuclear families. And so we leave everything up. Earlier, the grandparents were an integral part of passing on the faith. And today, I must say that I've heard of one case which deeply saddened me, where a parent told the grandparents, you are welcome to stay in our house, but you're not welcome to talk about Jesus to our children. And the role of transmission of the faith really, I think, belongs to a large extent to grandparents. So who are we celebrating? As I said, people who have raised us up, people who have told us funny stories and lived great lives, people who have wiped our tears, people who have walked with us when we could not even walk because we struggled. And these are all the living saints. Now, saints, as I said, are not made by the church, but they are declared to be saints because it was in the heart of God. Yeah, we are only declaring, the Pope only declares what was already in the heart of God. I was in Rome some days ago, and I was there partially for the canonization of the seven saints. I say partially because the crowd was so large that we had to walk all the way down to the Via della Conciliazione and then walk all the way back, and then with security they wouldn't allow us ahead. So it was a huge crowd. Now, when you call people a saint today, for example, we say this person lives a saintly life. I think very often people shy away from, they say, no, I'm not a saint. I always say the fact that a saint is humble and doesn't claim to be a saint qualifies them to be a saint. So my position is we need more saintly people. We need examples of saintly life, and we should aspire to be like saints. People aspire to be a doctor. What do? They study hard. People aspire to be engineers. They put in hard work. They study hard. If we are going to want to be saints, and we ought to want to be saints, I mean, who wants to be the devil? That's the opposite of a saint. But if we want to be a saint, then we have to aspire it. We have to study the word of God. We have to live. It's not an easy life, but we should be. We should not be bloated that we are saintly people. That is something that others should say of their free will. St. Augustine said something very interestingly, and he said it in Latin. He said, Si este et esta cur nos ego. Let me translate it for you. He says, if she or he can be a saint, why can't I? Yeah, and that is the way we should look at our lives. If he or she can be a saint, if Carlos Acutis or Mother Teresa can be a saint, why can't I? Why is this not on the table for as part of our lives? So saints don't see themselves as saints, others see them. I like this line which I found while preparing for this teaching. It said, a saint is a sinner who keeps trying. So if you think you're a sinner who keeps trying, you are on the way to sainthood. A saint is a sinner who keeps trying. I like these definitions rather than, we have these saints who are so high up and we feel we can't even identify with them. No, every saint had a past, every sinner has a future. So today we are celebrating really the triumphant church, the church triumphant, those who have succeeded are now with God. Tomorrow we're going to celebrate the church militant, yeah, those who continue to struggle here on earth in purgatory, those who continue to struggle. So the church triumphant in heaven, the church militant continues. Militant is not really to fight, but to really to struggle through what we go through. Now, I found another line from Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, which I want to share with you, and I thought was very interesting. He says, why should our praise and glorification, or even a celebration of this feast day, mean anything to the saints? And here's what he says. The saints have no need of humor from us. That is to say, what are we trying to amuse them by calling them saints? They know they are saints, yeah? Neither does our devotion add the slightest to what is already theirs, yeah? Uh, it's not going to change them if we have more people turning to St. Anthony or whatever. He says clearly, if we venerate their memory, it serves us. It does not serve them. When I think of them, I feel myself inflamed by tremendous yearning. My heart, the celebration of this day helps me to say I should want that same gift, that same life that saint had. So the next reflection I want to make with you this morning is ask yourself also, who's your patron saint? Many people are named after their patron saint because they were born around or on the day of the saint's feast. But do you have a patron saint? I think most people have a go-to saint, and it is what I call a very selfish go-to saint, because I've lost something. Go to Saint Anthony. This is the kind of I'm in a hopeless situation. Go to Saint Jude. These are go-to saints. But what about having a saint whose life has inspired you? Of late, Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus, her life inspires me. She's the patroness of the mission. She never stepped into the missions, but she prayed for the missions. Yeah, and she's the patroness of something she never did in action. She only did in her intention, in her prayer life. So get yourself a patron saint today. Read the lives of the saints. This is something we are not doing now. We also speak in the credo, we talk about our belief in the communion of saints. I like that concept of the communion of saints. There are no solo saints. One doesn't shine brighter than the other, but rather the saints are a family. Both those of us who live in this world must live like saints in a family, and of course those who live with the Lord are a family. That's why it's the communion of saints. Just in jest, once somebody said to me something that I've always laughed. They said, Father, to live with the saints in heaven is to live with them in glory. To live with the saints on earth, that's another story. Meaning to say that very often people who pretend to be saintly are perhaps the hardest to live in, because they don't really care about community. Yeah, this whole concept of I want to sit alone in church, I want to pray undisturbed, that is not what the Eucharist is about. Yeah, we don't come to receive the Lord as individuals. That's why it's called communion, all together. Yeah, these solo artists in the church have no place in heaven, because they don't know how to live in communion on earth. How are they going to live with the communion of saints in heaven? something for you to think about. So, another reflection I want to make today is this, that God's call for holiness, as I said earlier, is universal. It's not only some are called to be saints, but all are called to be saints. Jesus tells us, "Be perfect" in Matthew chapter 5 verse 48. Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Another reflection that I want to make is something that I found on the internet, and I thought it was very interesting, and it talked about the three Teresas, the three saints who all share the name Teresa. And it says how to walk in the way of a saint. And it gives us a reflection from each of these saints, taking Saint Teresa of Avila, who asks us to charge and recharge our spiritual batteries by prayer. That's how you become a saint, by charging and recharging. I think most people, their batteries are dead. You can't run a car with a dead battery. You've got to change it. But you've got to recharge it, or you've got to change it completely. And prayer helps us to recharge. Whenever you feel your battery is down, you feel I'm so low, you can be 100% sure you're not praying. 100% sure. So St. Teresa of Avila teaches us how you can be a saint, how you can walk in the way of sainthood by recharging your batteries. St. Teresa of Lycia, or the child Jesus who I just spoke about, says, and I love this because this is something I've begun to do in my life. It says, convert every action into prayer by offering it to God for the glory of salvation and for the souls. Convert every action into prayer. Very often you're doing something and you don't like to do it, or it's going to be challenging. Simply say, Lord, this action of mine I offer for all the souls in purgatory. This action of mine I offer out of love for you, for the glory, for salvation. Offer it. And you'll see that what you do no longer becomes a burden. It doesn't become even a struggle. You're able to look after someone or care for an unkind person, even though they continue to be unkind. Yeah, they're not going to change. Who changes? You change. Prayer does not change the other. Prayer changes you. Prayer does not change the other. Forgiveness doesn't help the other. Forgiveness helps you. This is the mistake we make. We say, I've forgiven them, but hello, what is the effect? Has it changed you? Has it made you more loving towards them? The other person has to find their own salvation. Your job is not to save the world. First, save yourself. Okay? So, the third way of how to walk in the saint was given to us by Saint Teresa of Calcutta. And she says something very interesting. She says, do ordinary things with great love. Do ordinary things. The ordinary things that you do, put so much of love into it that your act itself becomes extraordinary. So, three ways in which you can walk as a saint. Now, as I said earlier, there is a diversity of saints. There's not a single pattern of how we can become saints. I'm going to give you a few examples of this, of the diversity of saints, and the fact that there is no single pattern of holiness. Uh, take St. Thomas Aquinas. He was an intellectual giant, even St. Augustine for that matter. Intellectual giant. Take John Marie Vianney. The poor chap could not even pass his seminary studies. He was often considered a duffer, but he was great. He was a great confessor. There were lines of people. He could read people's souls. The other one is uh, Padre Pio, who had that great ability to sit in the confessional. Vincent de Paul was a saint in the city caring for the poor. You can be a saint in the village or a saint in the city. St. John Marie Vianney was in the village, in a rural area. St. Vincent de Paul in a city. St. Anthony ministered in the desert. Then you have St. Teresa of Calcutta, who was a saint for the poor. St. Jerome had a terrible temper. He was known to take things and fling it at people. He translated the Bible from Greek to Latin, and he gave us what is called the Vulgate, the translation to Latin. Terrible temper tantrum man. St. Peter was a saint. Look at how different he was. I always call him the patron of spontaneous prayer. Joan of Arc led a battle. I mean, we can go on and on. There is no one way of being a saint. There is a diversity of saints, not a single pattern of holiness. Finally, I want to end this teaching with Matthew chapter 25, verse 21. And I think all of us should live for this, because when we die, The only thing we should hear from Jesus is from Matthew chapter 25. The last public teaching of Jesus in Matthew's gospel is this text, the last public teaching. When I was hungry and thirsty and naked in prison, you welcomed me, you gave me food, you clothed me. Very similar to the gospel of today, the Beatitudes. Blessed are you. And the only thing we should live for are the words of Jesus, well done, good and faithful servant. Well done, good and faithful servant. I invite you today to sainthood. I invite you to walk in the way of the saints. I invite you to share this teaching if you find it bold enough and you find yourself bold enough to share it with many others. And look in the description box today for the teachings also for tomorrow, teachings I've done previously on All Souls Day. Let's see how many of you actually watch it. May God bless you, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to this channel, and please leave your comments. Bye from sunny Goa.